So tell me about your creativity. Last week, we talked on the topic of keeping your design skills sharp. And you can do this through continuing your education or giving back to a community. This week, we're going to talk about keeping your creativity at its peak level. As a graphic designer, you're going to be hired as a creative thinker. You're going to bring to the table a set of skills that let you problem solve and come up with solutions that other people may not think about. So it's very important to stay on top of new trends and to continue to implement new innovations into the design process and the creative work that you create. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And so I want to give you some ideas in this video of how I do this and some different things you can incorporate into your own design thinking. The first and easiest thing you can do is to start finding and following other graphic designers and professional artists online. Joining social networks like Facebook, LinkedIn, and even Behance.net will allow you to follow other working professional portfolios and to be inspired by their work. Very often, they're working for the kind of clients that hopefully you would want to work for. And very often, they're doing things that are different from how you work. And so as you start to follow them, pay attention to their work method and the kind of trends that they're setting. Think about ways you can incorporate what they're doing into the work that you have. The second thing you can do is what the book calls collecting creative bits. And this simply means keeping a collection of different examples of graphic design work that you find interesting. Very often, these examples can be good starting points for your own personal or professional jobs. Let me give you an example from my own personal practice. I brought with me this little box, and this little box is part of a larger inspirational file. I've actually got an entire file folder full of these different things. Whenever I go to a workshop or a conference, or if I get something in the mail that captures my attention and I think, hey, this is pretty cool, I keep it in my inspirational file. And whenever I need to create something and I'm kind of in a creative rut, I don't know where to start or I don't know what would look good, I can open up my file folder and pull out these different ideas and use them as a starting point. Within this box, I've got different things like mail-outs, I've got brochures, I've got business cards and pins. Anything like this I can pull from and I can see how it was printed, how it was created, how it was set up. And all of this is good inspirational start to the kind of work that I could do. Additionally, I could bring this to a client and I can say, hey, here's what other people have done. Maybe I can create something like this for you. So keeping a pull file like this is a great habit to get into. A third way of keeping your creativity sharp is by developing yourself into a T-shaped person. If you think about the shape of a T, part of it is very broad, but there's another part that's very narrow. And so you as a creative individual should have a broad understanding of the entire graphic design field, but you should narrow in on one particular area that you can be best at. And the best and simplest way of doing this is simply remaining literate. So I've brought with me some literature that helps me keep my T shape. These are magazines and books that I find myself going back to constantly for inspiration and for starting points for my own projects. Things like Print Magazine and How and Communication Arts. All of these are available in our school library, and all of these are things that you can subscribe to. And when you subscribe to them, hold on to them for the rest of your career. I've got magazines that are over 10 years old, but the information and the design and the ideas that are in them, they're still just as relevant today. As a matter of fact, I can take an old idea and recreate it and rehash it as a new idea, and it looks totally innovative. But to be honest, I got it from something that was done years ago. But it was new for me, and it's often new for the clients that you're working for. So just because something is old doesn't necessarily mean it's outdated. You can always have a fresh take on it. As far as books go, I've got books on topics that are both broad and narrow. I've got technical manuals. This is a book on the psychology of art. I've got dozens of printed portfolios that showcase the work of other well-known graphic designers. Just like the magazines, all of these can be good starting points for you to springboard into new areas of creativity. The information doesn't go out of style. The information is just as relevant today as it was when it was first printed. And so if you can get your hands on these kind of books, definitely do that. Start developing your own library. The final way of developing yourself as a T-shaped professional is by learning how to collaborate. Iron sharpens iron, so you want to be able to throw out ideas and to bounce ideas off of other professionals and get good feedback and develop your ideas from that feedback. Very often this means brainstorming or learning how to innovate with people who aren't graphic designers but can give you a different perspective that's outside of the box. For me, that means sharing my ideas with my wife. She's an English teacher, but whenever I explain something to her, she's able to give me a way of thinking that I wouldn't have thought about. So as a professional, find people who you're comfortable sharing your ideas with. Find mentors who can tell you how they would solve a problem, because very often there's other people who've done the same work that you've done, they've faced the same challenges, and they've gotten through them. And so they're eager to share what they've learned with you. So where do you get your creativity from? Hopefully, I've given you some things to think about. Hopefully, you've started to develop your own pull file of inspiration. You could start developing your own little library of books and magazines. And hopefully, you can find someone who can help sharpen your skills as a creative.